Welcome, everyone. It's a beautiful day out there. We are really happy today to be with you with our webinar on how to finance your export with Xiomara Treque from the Exim Bank. I'm going to go through some logistics to start about our webinar for today. All attendees will be placed in listen-only mode until the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. If you have a question during the webinar, please feel free to type your question into the chat window that is on your right and in your screen. Chat questions will be moderated at the end of the webinar by Melissa O'Connor. And we will be recording today's presentation, and we will have it available on our BizLaunch website on the resources by the end of this week. If you have additional questions, please feel free to do a business counsel and appointment. Our phone number is 703-228-0808, or contact me, Lourdes Morales, at morales@arlingtonva.us. Again, welcome. My name is Lourdes Morales. I work as a business consultant here in BizLaunch, and we have our special guest today, Xiomara Treque, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Xiomara. She currently serves as an export finance manager in the Office of Minority and Women-Owned Business of Exim Bank's Small Business Group. In this capacity, she plays an integral role in cultivating and managing relationships with groups and organizations that represent minority, women, and Hispanic businesses. Ms. Treque conducts business development missions, visits Exim Bank prospects, customers, banks, organizations, and speaks before exporting groups. She has a career with more than 25 years of experience in the banking and corporate sectors, and she has managed a portfolio comprised of groundbreaking infrastructure and energy projects in the Americas. She also holds a degree in international marketing from Bernard Baruch College in New York City, and she is also fluent in Spanish. So with that, we want to welcome Xiomara, and also Tara Palacios, the director of BizLaunch, is going to be
in the background
joining us for this webinar. Please follow us on Twitter. If you have any question as well, you can tweet us or contact us directly and the information that I provided before. With that, welcome Xiomara, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you very much, Lourdes and Tara Palacios. It is our pleasure to be here with you today and to have an opportunity to reach out to the community here in Arlington and to talk about what Exim Bank can do to help them reach out export markets. So the purpose of our conversation this afternoon is to give you a good idea of what the Export-Import Ban is and what is it that we do. So we are the official export agency of the United States government. We were established in 1934, so we have a long history of over 81 years. And a lot of people think that we are the best kept secret in Washington, and that's because a lot of people do not know what we do. We have created a very strong campaign this year in trying to get to the minority and women-owned businesses, small business in general, so that they get familiar with our program. Pretty much every small business is familiar with the Small Business Administration. We call them our sister agency, and the Commerce Department, but somehow we are left behind. And this is the reason why we're doing this, and we're trying to reach out to you. In general, our headquarters are in Washington, D.C. We are a block from the White House on Vermont Avenue. We have 12 regional offices in the U.S., and in the regional offices, we have it's a small group of personnel, but they are there together with the export group of the Department of Commerce, and sometimes with the Small Business Development to help you reach out and export and find more business. So the Export-Import Bank, our mission is to create jobs by supporting U.S. export. So before we get any further, I'd like to talk about the cost to the taxpayer. It is important to keep in mind that although we are the official U.S. export agency of the U.S. government, we are self-sufficient and we generate our own funds. So we are not using taxpayer dollars for the operations that we perform. We have returned to the Treasury $675 billion and $7 billion over the last 20 years. So consistently we are adding to the Treasury, and that's because, as I say, we are self-sufficient. Exim Bank supports small business. Perhaps you have heard of us talking about large corporate and large transactions. And yes, we do that. But our focus, the majority of the transactions that we do is in support of a small business. Approximately 2,200 transactions a year are done in support of a small business. In fiscal 2014, we authorized $5 billion to support U.S. small business. In that, we have a tremendous array or menu, per se, of companies that we're supporting, and over 3,300 small business transactions, which represented about 89% of Exim Bank transactions in general. So as you can see, even though we do large corporate, small business is really the day-to-day operation of what the bank does. So let me give you here just a quick little outline of what we have been doing for the last 4 years. Total transactions that we've done for supporting minority and women-owned businesses in 2011 was 606, and that increased in 2014 to 756 transactions. The dollar value increased as well, even though it doesn't look from the 790 to the 751 proportionally large. The amount of businesses is tremendously important that we have supported. So some of the questions that we hear constantly from the U.S. exporters or companies that are in business, and their next step is basically outreaching and growing by exporting, is, should I enter a new market? When will I get paid? How will I get cash to make the product? If I make a big sale, will my buyer be able to obtain financing? This is what we do. What we do is we help you in every single one of these questions, and that's what our purpose is, to help you enter those few markets that you don't have the confidence, you don't know the customer, you don't know the language, you don't know any of the day-to-day operation of the country. So that's what we're here for, to help move on those transactions. For another important point to keep in mind is that our financing really makes the difference, because we don't have a minimum amount of financing. And one thing that we do on all the transactions that we do is that we minimize the risk. And I will talk about the different products and how we minimize the risk on those products. We level the playing field. How do we level the playing field? We work with a number of banks and non-bank financial institutions that operate our products. And by leveling the playing field, what we do is they are able to utilize their own funds to lend, but, to provide a loan to the customers overseas or to you here in the U.S., and we help minimize the interest rate as well as the risk associated with the transaction. We are completely prohibited by the Congress to compete with the commercial sector. Having said that, if you already have a transaction that has been supported by a bank or a non-financial institution, we cannot buy that transaction. We cannot support it because you already obtained funding from the private sector. So to a certain degree, in the old days, we used to be called lenders of last resort. So what that means is if you cannot find financing for your transaction because it's too small, because the bank or the lender sees the risk associated with the country or the buyer, that's where we can level the playing field for you. We support a variety of industries, and from manufacturing, and when I talk about manufacturing, I'm talking heavy equipment, but I'm also talking about commodities, small items. I like to use examples like edibles, wine, the production of wine here in the U.S. and California. We have supported that overseas. So when you talk manufacturing, it covers everything and anything that is produced here. We also cover a lot of construction equipment to foreign companies that are buying. We have a medical equipment program which is quite beneficial if you are selling medical equipment devices overseas. We have a very nice program that can analyze small clinics on a personal basis, and rather than huge hospitals or clinics. So the medical equipment program is very helpful for that sector. Another sector where we are quite strong is in the mining, but then again, do remember that for the mining and the power, as well as the aircraft and avionics, all of those industries have a lot of sub-suppliers where you can play a role, and that's something that you have to keep an eye on when big companies win awards, whether your product can be beneficial for them, and then you can indirectly or directly benefit from the services of Ex-Im Bank. So export, we consider export services. Services are considered an export if you are providing architectural drawing or any other geological studies, environmental, anything that is represents a service. If you're teaching anything that is not tangible, that is not an equipment, but it's a service, is also considered an export if it is performed by a U.S. company or a U.S. company personnel doing business here in the U.S. We are very strong in the renewable energy sector. We have a group specifically involved with this sector so that we make a difference in the environmental sector in many countries. I mean, we are involved in 150 countries, and although we have not done environmental in every single one of them, our environmental portfolio has grown considerably since we created a program about 6 to 7 years ago. We are also strong in agribusiness, and although we do have the agricultural department that support a lot of export and agricultural equipment transaction, sometimes we are called upon directly by the manufacturer or by a purchaser to support agricultural equipment. We don't have a preference of what sector or item we are covering, as long as it is a U.S. manufactured good. So wholesale retail, we have a good example even here on the wholesale and retail is used clothing to a foreign market. We have supported that as well. And the oil and gas industry, so now we're talking about the large production of oil and gas in pretty much every Latin American country and Europe, where we support the U.S. services associated and goods provided for the extraction and production of both the oil and gas. Here we have a lovely view of Arlington, and that's all.
They can give us
yeah, 1 second, and we'll get back to the program. So I mentioned that we are open in 150 countries, but we also have a website, which I'm going to show it at the end, but it's exim.gov. And we have there all of our programs, and you can also take a look and see if you're going to export to a given country, you can take a look and see how we are doing in that country and whether we are open or closed in that particular market. So that's, it's called a country limitation schedule, and I'm out of the offline right now and just giving you a couple of points for additional information. So in there you have a list of every single country where we are operating and under what parameters. We have working capital programs, we have insurance, we have direct loan, and it will show you exactly what transactions we are covering and under what parameters the transactions are moving forward. So I'm going off script right now, and when we get back to it, we'll cover that as well. But it's not unusual that we're working with technology and we have issues, so we are all familiar with that.
We will be working on resolve this issue as
soon
as possible.
But in the meantime, I have some information that I can certainly go over. So our business does represent a significant part of the day-to-day operation of many companies. And a lot of large corporates that you've seen today originally passed through the Small Business Administration. And a Small Business Administration does help, and it's very well known to any company that is opening for business. And I like to say a lot of the times once they are pretty much grown, they move on to export, and that's when a lot of the time we get involved with those companies. And let's go back to the questions that I highlighted, which is why should you enter a market, when can you get paid, and how will you get paid, and how the product can be established. As I mentioned, we work with a network of banks that have our program, and we have programs that are pre-export. What we call pre-export are programs that are working capital. When your company requires funds to either produce or generate the goods that you're selling. So that's where we provide working capital based on the financial of your own company. We also have a new program that we are testing as a pilot program right now called Global Credit Express. And what that program does is basically provide a direct loan from the U.S. government directly to you, the U.S. company, for the production of a good or for completing a non-export transaction. So these two programs are the programs that we have available today for pre-export. As I mentioned, the Global Credit Express is a pilot program. We have a few entities that are working with us with that program, and we're looking forward to supporting more U.S. companies. The reason why the program was created was basically after the banking crisis. We supported a lot of large corporates, and we also noticed that the small banking community and the small businesses needed support as well. So that's the purpose of the program, to support you in your day-to-day operation for export or non-export transaction. In addition to the pre-export financing, we have post-export financing, where we are covering insurance, guarantees, and direct loan. Insurance, under our insurance program, we have a tremendous array of different programs, and they all basically cover your receivable. As a U.S. company, you can come and get a policy, and the policy can cover to you. Okay, here we are, pre-export and post-export financing. So the insurance covers pretty much anything that is insurance, a general program, and it's not any different than your car insurance, your home insurance, or anything like that. What we'll be covering is insurance your receivable, so that you, as an exporter, can extend credit to your customer and feel comfortable that you will get paid. And that's our purpose. You get paid here in the U.S. After the terms of your transaction. If the customers, let's say you have an insurance payable 60 days, if you don't get paid on the 60 days, you can submit that claim to us, and we will pay you and collect from the foreign entity. In addition to also holding the receivable under the insurance, you can also sell it to one of the banks that have the insurance that are part of our network. So you have a lot of opportunities with insurance, or you can work with a broker that have an insurance company, and they can put your transactions under that. So we have the guarantee, and now we'll move a little forward since to show a little bit of the programs which I've been talking about. The guarantee. So how can Export-Import Bank products assist you? So those are the questions that we hear a lot from our customers. And it's based on need. Funds to fulfill an order. What you need then is a working capital guarantee transaction. Fund for export development, then we want to look into the Global Credit Express program, which is a direct loan to you based on your own financial capacity. If you need extension of credit, this is what I was talking previously, then we want to insure your receivable and you want to get an insurance policy, or you want to go to an entity that has an insurance policy and work with them. Buyer financing, that's when we actually look at the buyer financial status, and we look at the last 3 years of the financial capacity to determine whether they have the capacity to buy X, Y, and Z from yourself and to repay. So we can do on the buyer financing any of our programs. Well, medium term, we could do long term, we could do insurance, or we could do a guarantee. So this is to give you a flavor of what we can do. Our job is, or my job per se, is to hear what your needs are, and once we determine what your needs are, then we move forward and try to help you figure out which of the programs is most advantageous to you and for your sale. So here is again about the pilot program, but here you'll get to see a little bit more of the details that I was talking about. It's a pilot program for a small business. It's a direct loan from the export-import bank to the exporter. So financing for business or exporting, not just specific export transactions. So that's the difference between this pilot program and everything we do. Everything we do is associated with export. This particular program is getting you ready for doing so. It's based on a revolving credit line, and up to now we do about $500,000. That's the maximum that we are doing, and the terms are 6 or 12 month tenor. So if the program grows, perhaps everything will grow with it, but right now that's where we are, and I think it provides tremendous benefit to the U.S. exporter, to yourself, to grow and to enter new markets. Our working capital guarantee, what it does is exactly what I love this picture. You really stretch the dollar. So instead of utilizing your own revenues, your own funds to produce, to buy raw material, labor, or supply for a transaction that's going to be an export, we can provide you a 90% guarantee on working capital. And that's a loan directly to you, U.S. exporter. What we do is it's related to your inventory up to 75%, and we look at your receivable up to 90%. This transaction is specific, and it can be on a revolving line. When I say transaction is specific, is you can have one buyer, and is a repetitive buyer. So if you're selling to the same buyer consistently, then it can be a revolving loan. But if you have your goods and you're selling to several different buyers, so obviously each of the transactions to each one of those buyers is completely independent and based on its own merits. The terms are renewable, usually 1 year, and on some transactions might be up to 3 years. A point to keep in mind is that we have no minimum or maximum amount of transactions. We support anything and everything that is produced in the U.S. and generate U.S. jobs. A quick review of short-term insurance, which is also an account receivable insurance. It protects the U.S. exporter up to 95%, again, non-payment. Remember, I say that if you obtain an insurance policy and on the terms of the 60, 90, or 30-day you don't get paid, then we can cover that payment to you and recuperate the funds directly from the buyers, no matter what country they are at. So we're covered under our insurance policy, short-term, medium-term, or long-term. We cover the commercial risk as well as the political risk. So it's a comprehensive coverage on all of the transactions that we do. So what does it do? It allows you to be more competitive on credit terms to the foreign buyer. Let's assume that right now you're selling and your customer is actually paying you immediately. Your customer might be paying you with a credit card. So that's not, I mean, it's very common for foreign companies to actually do business that way because they cannot get funding from their local institution to buy your goods. So if you are extending credit and you're doing 30 days, we are giving you the opportunity to potentially generate terms up to 180 days or 360, depending on the goods that we are covering, or that basically that you are selling. You're also obtaining additional financing, so the buyer gets a little bit more of room for really being able to buy more from you, because now they're not using their day-to-day operational cash for that transaction. So it gives them time to utilize whatever they're buying from you, whether it's equipment, and generate the funds to repay on time. We have single buyer or multi-buyer policies, and single buyers is if you have one buyer in a given country, that's all you want to do, one buyer, then you want to look at a single buyer policy. If you're planning to export and you're planning to export to different markets, different buyers, the best policy is to buy a multi-buyer policy, because that will open the door for more policy, for more opportunities with buyers without having to come to us every time that you have one. So a small business, express insurance, those are the options that are available on the programs from the Export-Import Bank. So here are a few little points just to keep in mind. We don't cover military or defense-related products or obligor. What I mean by obligor, if you're doing a transaction with a foreign government, and that foreign government is part of the military or the police, those are entities that are prohibited, that we need to have permission to work with, and they are a section of how we work with them. So let us know, and we'll work together with you to try to figure out whether it's something that we can cover or not. As I mentioned earlier, what we are doing is we're supporting you, the U.S. exporter, to export manufactured U.S. goods. So we want to see U.S. content on a short-term basis, at least at 50% have to be U.S. And on the medium-term transaction, 85% of the goods should be U.S. content. And I don't want to bore you with all of this, the statistic of how we get to this or that. I think what's important is have to get to us and ask questions specifically related to your entity and your business. I mentioned earlier that we are open in 150 countries, that they are highlighted on the web, and that's what's restricted country limitation schedule. That's where you will find where we are open, on the what parameters, on the what programs, and we also have economic impact. Now, what do we mean by economic impact? We mean by economic impact if the item that we are supporting represent an adverse economic impact to the U.S., obviously we cannot support it. And that, for instance, the one that comes to mind, steel. The U.S. was very strong in the steel. We're still trying to protect that industry. So transactions related to the steel, we have to make sure that they are not, that steel that is being supported is not coming back to the U.S., and if it is, what impact it will have. Again, these are little things that we do internally. You don't have to worry about that. We're just giving you a flavor of what the items are. Shipping, if you're shipping and your transaction is more than $20 million, you have to ship on a U.S. registered vessel. Again, because we are a U.S. entity, and as a U.S. entity, we want to protect the maritime industry, and the maritime industry requires that anything above $20 million be shipped on a U.S. registered vessel. If you have anything that it goes above that amount and there is not a vessel available on the day that you are required to ship, you contact the Maritime Administration and they can give you a waiver to ship on whatever is available. That is something that is managed by the Maritime Administration, not necessarily by us. But again, as a government entity, we are supposed to follow all requirements by the U.S. government. Additionality, this is a term that I like to say that we created. What does it mean? For us, it means that if your transaction has already been supported by a U.S. bank or a financial institution, we cannot buy back that transaction. Because if we do that, we're basically taking the business out of a U.S. entity. So what we like to do is brand new transactions that you are working with your customer and that you cannot find financing or your customer does not have the opportunity to do financing. Now, before I go to the last page, I just want to mention that we do, when I was talking about the samples, the manufacturing and so on, we do everything. We cover from cotton to shoelaces to satellite going into space to commercial aircraft to seeds from growing peppers to, I mean, anything that you can think of. I'm looking at my nail now, so I have to say we have supported nail polish to foreign countries. We have supported cosmetic product manufactured in the U.S. to foreign countries. So anything, don't think that your product, if it does not have a market overseas, it's a matter of getting out there and talking to all of our resources that we have here in Arlington, the Department of Commerce, ourselves, and being vigilant and up to date on all the opportunities that are available. So call Exim Bank if you have questions, and of course you can call our colleagues here in Arlington Beach. If you have a foreign buyer that wants credit terms, give us a call. If you have an exporter, if you export routinely, but you grow in business sale is limited because of non-payment, this is exactly what I was talking about when I was making that example about your customer is paying with their credit card. That's a limited, that limits your buyers to grow and to buy more from you. So extending credit is really the way to grow. Are you losing export opportunity because you will only accept letters of credit or cash prepay? So those are the things that you have to think and consider. If these are the things that are keeping you from growing, there are opportunities for you to branch out. entering cash flow problem due to increased foreign sales, or if you have a buyer that needs several years to pay for capital equipment, we can cover capital equipment from 5 years to 7 years, and some of them up to 10. So you might be selling a capital equipment on a cash basis or on a 2 years or less. So that's something that gives you more flexibility to sell your goods. Here are, I mentioned that we have regional offices. Here you have in the map, which is appears on our webpage, where our offices are. These offices are specifically directed to work with a small business. So if you are in the area, if you have a question about the given markets, from Michigan to Minnesota or in Atlanta, you either can call Exim Bank in Washington, or you can call our regional offices and ask the questions related to any particular items that you have questions on. Also on our webpage, you can find a significant amount of information covering a list of brokers that have insurance policy with us, and they might be able to include your transaction in the policy so that you don't actually have to do a policy yourself. So that's a determination that you do based on your necessity, whether you want to go on your own, you want to utilize any of the city or state partners. We also have a list of delegated lenders. The delegated lenders are the lenders that do the working capital. That is, if you need funds to generate export goods. And we have the U.S. Export Assistance Center, as well as our colleagues from the Arlington Biz, who are very committed, and we're working together to reach out to you. And here we have, obviously, the questions. My name and number appear there, as well as my email. Do feel free to get in touch with us if you have any additional questions after this event. We are open and looking forward to support your export.
Thank you, Samara, for this great presentation. And we would like to hear from Melissa if we have any questions from the audience today.
We do. We have a few questions. The first one is Exim Bank involved in any technology-based businesses, such as like tech support type services?
We are. I mean, the tech is very technical, as we very well know. So, but yes, we do. So what I would like to do, whoever asked that specific question, if they can talk to me directly, either later today or at another point, and give me a little bit more information about what exactly is it that they, what type of services they perform. I can probably give them some pointer. Again, in the tech we have from the actual export of a service to the actual work of someone doing the work overseas. So yes, the answer is yes. We'll have to, if it is manufactured in the U.S., produced in the U.S., whether it's a service or an actual good, the answer is yes.
So I'm not sure if that falls under this. The next question we have is, could you elaborate on how you help those services businesses? And like they gave an example specifically of a government contractor or a software company.
Okay. If it is a government contractor, for instance, in that particular government contractor has a contract with a foreign entity, we can support that export contract based on whatever services they are supplying. For instance, if they are installing some new equipment and they're teaching them how to use it, or they are providing some software that it is, on a limited basis on I haven't a blank now, the term. I should say on a contract basis or lease basis or something to that effect. So yeah, that will be something that come to mind. I do have to say that the tech sector is a little complicated because Exim Bank was created with the idea of an export of actual good, the movement of a good, be a tractor, be a plant or whatever. And through the year, we have been adapting to the fact of globalization, and that we are doing everything from providing, undersea cables for telephone and web communication to pretty much everything that you can think of. I don't know if I answered your question there explicitly, but again, I do invite you to let's discuss it in detail. If you have a contract with a company overseas, we could take a look and see, without having to take a look at your actual contract and without you having to give me any business confidential information, at least let you know whether it's something that is subject to our financing or not.
So would it be best for them to contact you specifically, directly?
Yes, the best bet is to contact me by email, and specifically let me know their questions, and then we can set up a conference call to discuss their specific issues.
Great. And I have one last question. What are some factors that you believe a business needs to have in order to be successful overseas?
Some of the factors that I see in small business is there are a lot of resources. As I mentioned, the U.S. government has a lot of resources. The local government, like Arlington Biz, has resources. Is to get acquainted with the market that you really want to enter. And sometimes it's not so much that you want to enter a market, it's whether your product is something that is needed in a given market. So do that research. If your product is needed in a given market, then that is definitely something that you should be concentrating on. So don't look at a market like I want to go. I was just going to mention a market, but I'm not going to, because I'm not going to be preferential to any of them. But, sometimes we say we're going to go X, Y, and Z because it's closer geographically or whatever, but your product is not needed there. So that's a fail. So take a look at the market, take a look at the need, take a look at your product and services, and that's how you should look into it. And as you move into going into export, reach out through the government, reach out to the commerce departments, reach out to Arlington Biz, reach out to us, reach out to all the resources that can help you identify where you're going and who you should be meeting. If you go overseas, one of the best ways to go overseas for the first time is to go on trade mission. Also, there are reverse trade missions that another agency brings into the U.S. is the Trade Development Agency brings reverse trade mission to this area all the time, and especially they usually meet here in D.C., so in Arlington. So those are the resources to keep an eye on that are going to help you grow your business.
So we want to thank you again, Xiomara, for everything that you have, all the great information that you share with us today. And thank you, everyone, for being with us today. And you will get the presentation later in the week. And please feel free to contact Xiomara or us if we can be of any assistance. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.